is Nasha and I am back with another tutorial. It's been like 9 months since I made a YouTube videos, but today I got something I think a lot of people would enjoy and like to try. I'm going to show you how to make your very first desktop application together using Electron. This tutorial will hopefully be very beginner friendly. It will be a step-by-step line-by-line instruction on how to set up your very first Electron application. Before we jump in, just a quick note for people who are not familiar with Electron. So what you see here, these are desktop apps made with Electron. They are pretty cool, pretty flexible, and surprisingly pretty easy to make. So what is Electron? Electron is a framework that lets you use web technologies like HTML, CSS, JavaScript to make a desktop application. The gist of it is if you can make a website, then you can make a desktop application. For example, this music player right here is just plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but it runs like a real desktop application on my Mac. So Electron wraps your web code in a container that allows you to run pretty much like a web code as a desktop applications on most operating platforms. So I can also run this music player right here on like a window as well. The cool thing about this is you can make a single application that runs on multiple platforms without having to learn so many different languages. So let's get started and set up our very first Electron application together. Note before we jump in, I will be mentioning a lot of code assets and templates in this video. I have everything I use on my Github repo, which I will link in the description below. I will also try to put a general instruction on my GitHub as well. That way you don't have to try to pause and read line by line of what I'm doing. Also, this is my first video talking in front of the camera as I'm coding, which is a lot harder than I thought. So I apologize if I was not making any sense at a certain point. Feel free to leave any clarifying questions in the comments and let's get started. So the first thing I'm gonna do is open VS Code and then just go to whatever folder that you want your project to be in. I already made my folder, so it's called Electron Tutorial, so I'm just gonna open that. First thing you'll need in order to make an Electron app is NodeJS. There are multiple ways to install NodeJS. I am going to show you how to use your terminal command line to do this, but another easy way that you can also do is go to nodejs.org and just kind of follow their download instructions. I'll link their website in the descriptions if you want to do it that way. I think that might be the easier way, but if you are interested in doing it with your terminal command line in VS Code, then this is how you can do it. So you will need Homebrew in order to do this. I will also link in the descriptions pretty much like kind of how to install Homebrew and the link to that. But once you have that, what you're going to do is open VS Code, go to terminal, and then click new terminal. Once you're in here, I am going to install Node with this command. Also, if you want all the commands that you will need, I will link my GitHub to this project in the description, so you don't have to like read line by line on what I'm typing. Pretty much you can just go to GitHub and then follow all the commands. Then I'm just gonna check that my Node.js is installed properly. Once that's good to go, I am going to create a project folder for my Electron app. I am just going to say my Electron app, but you can kind of name this whatever you want. So this is the name of the project folder. Once I have that, I am going to cd into it. You should see the name of your folder right here. Once I'm in there, I'm going to initialize node project. And this should give me this package.json file. And I am going to install Electron. And then I am going to create all the files that I need, which are the two main files, main.js and then index.html. So once I get here, my folder should look something like this. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to edit my package.json. Again, I will link the actual code in my GitHub repo, so you can just go in, find package.json, and then copy and paste it. Pretty much I will go to package.json, copy the code, and then just paste it. So it should look something like this. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to edit main.js. Again, just go to my GitHub repo and then just copy and paste what I have on there. And I will make sure to save everything. What I will also do is I will create two more files. The first one is styles.css and then the second one is script.js. You want to make sure that these two new files are in the folder. So right now, as you can see, they're not in this folder, so I'm just gonna move them in here. There we go. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on index.html. I have the template on my GitHub repo, so I recommend that you could just go on there and pretty much just copy and paste it. It's just like a super simple index.html file that links to the style sheet and the script, and then just has like one text and one buttons. This will just kind of demonstrate what our app will look like. Also edit my styles.css a little bit just to make sure that the Electron app is draggable. So again, you can go to my GitHub repo and just copy and paste the code from styles.css onto here. Okay, so now we have a super simple index.html and styles.css. What I'm going to show you is how to run the application to kind of see what it looks like as you keep building on it. So you're just going to go to your terminal command line and then type in npm run start. And this should run your Electron application window. So if you would like to change the window size, you can go to main.js and then play around with this number. You can also make it responsive, like resizables, but in this case, I'm just going to make it like a fixed window size just to make like a small little widget. But also I just want to keep things simple for the sake of this tutorial. So this is just the size that I'm working with. If you go to index.html, you'll see that we have like a text right here, and then a button, which you can see right here. And there we go. Now we have our very first Electron application. Now you can use HTML to edit any of these. So let's say, for example, if I add another paragraph that say hello, and then run it again. Oh, I forgot to save it. Hello, save it, and then run it again. I should see hello. So you can edit your HTML file, you can like style it with whatever you want in your CSS. So for example, if I want to change the background to like pink, then if I save it, I should be able to see a pink background. And then if you want to add any sort of like JavaScript code, you can as well. So this script.js is just connected to index.html. But yeah, now you can kind of play around with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS to customize and make this into whatever. If you are interested in building like a little calendar application widget so now you can just use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to kind of build whatever you want. One thing I do want to talk about is debugging instructions. So if you run into any problem during the setup process that we just did, or pretty much like anywhere along your journey of building your Electron application, I think that the easiest way to solve this is to copy and paste your errors. So for example, if you get like errors in your command line, just copy and paste those into AI tools of your choice. So whether that be ChatGPT or Cloud or whatever, I found those to be the easiest and fastest way to help people debug command line problems. Alright, so now we have the base of our Electron application that you are welcome to edit however you like. You can change anything in index.html, you can style it, you can add a JavaScript code, and pretty much just build this into whatever applications you want. For today's demonstration, I'm going to make like a cute, simple calendar widget that looks kind of something like this. You are welcome to stick around to build this with me. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of this window a little bit. So I'm going to change it to 214 by 228, just to make like a tiny little calendar that goes on the side of your screen. So I am just going to save it and then run it. So now I have this like tiny little window. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on my index.html. So I am just going to remove everything that's within app and then just start adding new stuff. So first I am just going to make a calendar. And within calendar, I am going to pretty much just make a box that will display the day and the month. So I'm just going to say day and then also month. What I need to do in order to actually have these display the date and the month is to go to my JavaScript and then add some code in order for it to display that. So I'm going to make a function called update calendar, and then I am just going to declare all the variables that I will need. So get the date, and then I will also make a variables of all the months names. Alright, and then I am also going to get the actual month. Alright, so now that we have the actual date and month of today, I just need to connect it to my div element here. So I'm just going to say get element by ID, and then I think I name it day. Then I'm gonna connect it to this variable right here, and then do the exact same thing with month. And then I will also need to make sure to initialize, like call the calendar function. There we go. So now you can see that this right here is displaying the date of today. So now we have the actual basic functions of pretty much what we need, but it is still kind of ugly. So I am going to work on making this pretty a little bit. So let's open the design that we are going for. So this is the design that we are going for. This right here is going to be its own div block and multiple small div blocks nested inside. I am going to just use like an image for the background of these. You can make it by code, especially this one is probably doable to make it with CSS. This one might be a little more complicated because I want to do like double stroke kind of situation, so I just think it's simpler if I would just export these as images and then use them as a background. You can grab these images in my GitHub repo in the assets folder. I already added them to my asset folders here, so I made the assets folder under my Electron app folder, and then I just added the two images. So let's get started to make this pretty. First thing I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna clear the background, the current background a little bit, and then I'm just also going to remove the padding here. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add the background to this whole thing, which should just be the body. Say background. Let's give this a try. I think I might have to change this to true. And then, all right, there we go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work on index.html. I have this outer box right here, which will be the equivalence of the app. Then inside, I have this title right here that would say Nasha's calendar. So I'm just going to make like a div box for that. Say title. Nasha's calendar. And then this right here is going to be where the main content goes, which in this case I already have it as calendar. So I'm going to start by customizing this one right here. So we are going to go to style.css and then title. First I would like to get the text styling, which I can just get from here. In case you're not familiar with this, I am in Figma right now, and if you go to this bottom tab right here and then click the rightmost little like code icon, you can get into Figma div mode, and if you kind of structure your items properly, you can get a lot of the CSS styling code that is pretty accurate. What I'm just getting here is the styling code for the text. I also would like to get the code for actual title box. This is not always like 100% accurate. It kind of depends on how well you structure your elements in Figma to resemble HTML and CSS div blocks. But I found that I like to kind of start with it and then work with it as I go. So start. There we go. Okay, so now I have Nasha's calendar. I think I have to fix the font a little bit. I think my computer might not have that font, so I might have to download that. Okay, I think it's not aligning center because I have not made this one a flex box yet, so let's work on that. So again, I'm gonna open my Figma and go to dev mode to get my CSS style sheet. There we go. So what I did was basically I just added these paddings right here, which I just got the code from Figma dev mode. So now my title is centered. So the next thing I'm going to work on is pretty much just this container right here that goes in the middle. The first thing I'm going to do, since I already made the day and month, is to just style these. So let's go to style.css. So this looks pretty similar to what we have right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on the containers to kind of align everything to be centered. So this container right here. There we go. So now we have this, which looks pretty similar to that. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the image background for calendar. There we go. So now this looks really similar to that. Okay, so now I'm going to try to make this slightly transparent in the background. There we go. So I just changed the opacity to 0.8 and now I have this cute little calendar app that is semi-transparent. And that's it for our first Electron application, a little calendar widget app. I will link everything that you'll need for this tutorial in the description. Likely it will be in a GitHub repo. I will try to include like all the codes, all the command lines, all the assets that you'll need in order to recreate this design right here. I hope you find this tutorial to be helpful and fun. Let me know if you have any questions, any suggestions on what kind of applications or projects you would like to see me make. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Bye!